There we go. Hey there, Laker fans. Welcome to another episode of Lakers Detailed. I'm your host, Vinay, with my co host, Raj. The Lakers are on a 3-game win streak, beating Memphis, Sacramento, and then Sacramento again in one of those
Mhm.
rare back to backs against the same team that everybody knows and loves. The Lakers have also somehow managed to flip their defense after making a few tweaks here and there, schematically, as well as roster wise, player starting, benching wise,
Mhm.
have flipped their defense against two pretty good offensive teams with dynamic guards and whatnot. And over the last 3 games, granted only a 3-game sample size, to the number one defense in the NBA efficiency wise, I would say.
Yeah.
And it has been a meteoric rise, but there's also been a bad side to it. Their offense has completely fallen off the cliff and gone to dead last, more or less.
Yeah.
And so we're going to discuss that today. We're going to talk about all the things that have kind of led to what the numbers look like and what the Lakers look like now, and probably dive in a little bit more about, how that rest and that break has sort of helped out LeBron too as well, because he's certainly playing much better since
Yeah.
taking those 8 days off. But before we jump into that, Raj, how are you doing? Lakers are up 3-0 over their last 3 games.
Right. Yeah. The world is always a little nicer. The oxygen feels a little better
Yeah,
when you had the Lakers win. It's a nice just time, I think, for everybody. It's holiday season. Hope everyone is enjoying their holiday time and day off, and hopefully some family time. And getting drinks in and relax. But Vinay, it's been a long week. There's been a lot of stuff. We've had Darvin Ham take Kendrick level shots at our squad, and
amazing.
we've had
Yeah.
we've had our fan base respond in kind to Darvin Ham.
Oh yeah.
We've obviously had the starting lineup change as well that's come through, but before I want to just start with this larger kind of theme. Vinay, we had a pod, I think it was last time or the one before, and we were talking about personnel, right, versus kind of just the team not hitting its ceiling on the defensive end.
Hmm.
And I really pushed this in chats as well that we're both a part of, that I don't think it was personnel. I think there were other things at factor, and I don't think the Lakers are the 28th best or worst, however you want to put a defense in the league. I also don't think they're the best defense in the league. They're not number
Hmm.
one. I think they're somewhere in the middle. But has this, I guess, stretched? There's been I'll just do a little backstory on where we're at. Last 5 games, obviously LeBron returns. Vinay, we're actually 14-7 when LeBron, AD, and Austin play, which I think
Mm.
both of us would agree is our big three.
Yes.
Some people don't like that I shove Austin into that, but I think that is our big three. That's a 66% win percentage, which would put us right under Houston for the 4 seed. We currently sit at number 6, and that those three actually have a really positive net rating now, so that's kind of pushed as much as I was pushing the net rating
Hmm.
stuff. But I'm gonna push this on you. Has this flipped kind of anything for you and where the personnel is at? Obviously Max Christie took Dalton Knecht's spot, but if you look at the rest of the roster, everything else is kind of been held the same, right? D'Lo
Hmm.
still comes off the bench. Gabe Vincent is still a part of this rotation. Cam Reddish is still a part of this rotation. Everything else is kind of stabilized. Max Christie has checked in for the starting guard for Dalton Knecht. I don't think that makes you 27 leaps better defensively. So I'm gonna ask you, has your mindset a little bit shifted on, hey, this is not all personnel? We obviously also stopped switching as
Yeah.
much, which is, it's strange that conversation hit Mike Trudell, which hit JJ Redick on the "Are you switching too much?" But that's changed. Drop coverage has been re-released, something that Darvin Ham specifically ran a lot last year. But in any case, we are returning back to the defense we ran last year. But yeah, asking you, anything change just in your mind of like, this is not all personnel? There is some defensive ceiling that this team can hit as constructed.
Yeah, like the 3 factors that I wanted to talk about for the
Mm-hmm.
pod, I think probably line up pretty well with your with what your assumption was, that it's not just personnel that's affecting it. And one of the things that we were going to discuss was them going to drop coverage. Like the
Yeah.
Lakers have been mixing in way more drop coverage. Maybe it's because they played Memphis. Even though they do have Triple J, they're playing Zach Edey and Jay Huff at the 5. Uh, Lakers went to more drop coverage against that team. Against the Kings, they've been playing drop coverage too as well, a little bit more. And it seems like the rest of the players are playing with more confidence defensively, knowing that, hey, every single time this pick and roll happens, I'm going over it. I'm not going under it, because that's what the coverage dictates. And so I wonder if that stability has made a big difference. And like you said, personnel hasn't changed significantly. It's the same guys that are running in that coverage. It's a coverage that they're very familiar with. They ran it for a season and a half under Darvin Ham, if not longer, 2 seasons under Darvin Ham. So it's something that they're very comfortable with, and I think there's a lot of merit to what you said, Raj. There's personnel. I think is still a little bit part of it, because we increase some guys' minutes, reduce some guys' minutes, that sort of thing. But I do think that they've made some internal fixes to really get the most out of what they can defensively, and it's to the tune of a top 10 defense, which is kind of insane that you have that on the roster.
Right, and then you look at the teams obviously they've played, right? I think if you go past, so obviously people want to start with the Memphis game, which I think makes sense. That's the best team that you beat, right? You beat on your home floor, and then they went and beat the Warriors by 50. I think that kind of showed the strength that the Memphis Grizzlies have. But following the Atlanta game, LeBron obviously set out a few, but even in that Minnesota game, the defense was strong. We just could not score, right, against Minnesota, who's having their own world of troubles that we don't have to get to. My point was always Vinay with this, and I got a lot of pushback for it. They're like, no, just trade everybody. I'm like, wait, can we just assess a little bit what's going on? You have Anthony Davis on your team, who I think has reached another level. I think that's a player that you can say, okay, there's a difference when AD was, maybe even at the defense he was playing before, it just was not, MVP level, defense player of the year level. I think he stepped up. But you played Memphis, who's a really good offensive team. Sacramento, even with their struggles, Vinay, they're a top 7 defense coming into this back-to-back. I don't know where they're at now, but coming in, they're a very strong offensive team with a lot of players that give us trouble, right? Small guards give us a lot of trouble, and ball handling bigs give us a lot of trouble. They have both. On not Supermax, but max deal contract. So I look at this team, and they're not a number 1 level, but I always thought there was a stable defense that was created. We can kind of get into now why that is. But that was always my case. So like, hey, let's at least get up to mid-average, league average defense. But let's jump to the fun conversation. Vinay, I think what everyone wants to talk about. Again, I think your agendas keep on going. You were pushing for you're pushing for a 30-minute a night from Max. Oh, you're kind of losing the Dalton one a little bit now, because his minutes are pushing. Yeah. They're getting under the 30-minute mark. But in any case, Austin obviously is going to hit his 30 pretty much every night unless an injury is created. And Dalton's going to go by what he's shooting. And I still think his play is starting to even out from where he was. But Max Christie, taking on the challenge of John Morant, taking on the challenge of De'Aaron Fox, taking on the challenge of Anthony Edwards a couple games ago against Minnesota, doing a hell of a job, and really kind of hitting what I think the Lakers saw this summer. But talk to me about starter Max Christie.
Max has really found a groove. The 3 ball is here and there. He's still not necessarily making a ton of attacks off of closeouts with the same level of confidence that we like to. He does it here and there. He had a nice dunk off of a guard screen action in the second Sacramento game, which kind of helped build some momentum when the game was a little tight. So the Lakers are not deploying him heavily on offense, like expecting a lot out of him on offense. But as a result of that, he's been really great on defense. Like Max, like if you weren't watching the Lakers to any degree, and the only thing that you were told was Max Christie got subbed in for Dalton Knecht, you would assume that Max is the reason why the defense is significantly that. He's a core part of it for sure.
Sure.
But there's the other factors too. Well, but Max has been great, dude. Like Max is crashing the glass. He's doing all the Max stuff that we really liked out of him. He's crashing the glass. Again, he's so much more stronger than he looks, and whatever he might not have in speed, which he has a lot in speed, his athleticism, the athleticism gap between him and whoever he's guarding isn't significant enough to completely where he gets completely bit. The only way he's really going to get blown by completely is if he really misjudges a move and bites on a fake or something like that. But Max has been really good, and I think him playing Ja then Fox twice is fantastic, dude. Like he's played fantastic against him. If anything, if he's forcing the other team to always have to commit their big man to screen him to get him off of the other player, get him off the guy he's guarding, you're already winning something there. You're forcing them to have to do something they don't want to necessarily do every single time. He's just been great, dude. And I didn't have him as a segment, but Cam, like,
Yeah,
Cam has been
awesome.
insane, like in these spot minutes. And now Cam's almost got like this psychotic edge to him. Like, I don't know if you've been watching his body language when he plays. Like, he's almost like there's some like joy he like Cam is starting to show in really like effing up the guy that he's guarding's like entire rhythm. Like, he's really enjoying it. And yeah, I remember Avery Bradley said this a long time ago, and I'll hand this back to you. Like, sometimes you need a defensive tone setter, and we always think about Anthony Davis being the guy that does that. But sometimes when you have a guy who just really wants to scrap on the defensive end, like that's his not his calling card, but like that's what gets his gears, like
Yeah,
that's what gets him going. Like, it infects the other team, and we could talk about this in a later segment, but I have this theory about positive. NBA players are human beings. We are creatures that have like these positive feedback loops, and
positive reinforcement.
yeah, and it's positive reinforcement. And I think AD is one of those guys where the positive feedback loop for him is when he sees good defense. Like, when he sees his teammates playing great defense, it like almost feeds into his overall energy. Granted, he had a terrible last game against the Kings offensively, but he just turns into a wrecking machine himself. I think Max is setting the tone, dude. What have you been getting out of him these past games?
Right, and we should probably, just mention the 80 fist miss free throws once again.
Yeah,
Like, just absolutely.
yeah, for
Seems
sure.
like the ball feels like 300 pounds when he gets to the line. At the end there, you can kind of tell that he didn't want to be there. But no, I think I don't know if there's some sound coming through, but I think just Max has been awesome as a guy you can deploy on the just the speed guards. Vinay, and I think I love that you brought up AD, and I think we think of combinations and combos and in two-man combos on from offensive perspective.
Mhm.
I've loved the Max and AD just defensive combo, right? Like, if you're gonna bring up AD as on the ball screen, and if you're gonna have Max guarding the on-ball guy, those two together, that's just a lot of length. That's a lot of athleticism. That's a lot of athletic, players on the defensive end that you can kind of deploy against the other team. And I think even on the offensive end, he's cutting well. And we did this exercise over the summer, Vinay. But if you just write down the Lakers 3-and-D players, it's like Max, and it's like this long list this long kind of gap before you maybe get to Gabe Vincent, maybe you get to whoever else, and just some two-way guys that aren't LeBron and AD, obviously cutting them out of the circle from here. But no, and there's another idea with this. Man, I'm watching this team. You mentioned Cam, which I think is on point. I think it pushes a lot of players to their correct spots on the team, right? I think Cam Reddish as your backup kind of psycho defender makes a lot of sense. I think Cam Reddish as your starting two guard is probably a bigger role than he can handle. But you're right, off the bench he comes in, he's like, my job is just get deflections, is to be wild. He does take some threes still that are like, don't need that from Cam Reddish, but if you're defending that well, I'm not mad that if you haven't touched the ball in 10 minutes, you go and put up your first shot. But I think it's putting Rui, who's also like, he's been way better as a low man guy as well. We've talked a lot about Rui this last year and a half, but Max just as an athletic two guard. I still think Dalton will have something to say, Vinay, with how this two guard lineup ends up. He's obviously in a slump, but that offensive kind of ceiling there, I think, still is very lucrative to JJ Redick as a starter. But Max has been awesome, man. It's been something we've been asking for, and I think you were one. We're like, hey, you just got to play him. You have to.
He has to learn. Yeah,
through his struggles, and I think he's come out of the other side a better player, and just looks like he probably get some appreciation there. But I say this all the time. He was playing with our G League guys. Like, he was out there in garbage time like a week or 3 weeks ago, and now he's your starting two guard, and we'll see how that keeps up.
So Raj, I want to talk to you about a conspiracy that I have, because I'm trying to make sense of the rotation change from JJ, because I understand you have to pull Dalton out. Dalton's not giving you anything. If he's not making shots, he's not rebounding. Like, Dalton's just been in a rough space right now. He's the odd man out of that trio right now, like the Austin, Max, Dalton. He has to The same way Max has to learn how to impact the game, or Max is good at impacting the game in non-scoring ways. Dalton is the opposite of that. I think he's a very naturally gifted scorer, but he has to learn to affect the game in other ways outside of just scoring the basketball. Austin had to do that too. Like when Austin was playing with next to D'Lo, Austin had to be the defensive guy in order for him to stay on the floor. I think Austin said that openly. Like, if I want minutes, I got to play defense. Like that's the only way I stay on the floor. So I think Dalton's going to go through that rough patch. I know a lot of Laker fans, just because we mentioned him as a side note, like I think a lot of Laker fans are like, oh, like he's kind of falling off a cliff. He's like shooting like 13% from three or something like that for like the month of December.
Yeah,
I think he is in a funk. I think he will eventually break out of that funk. A break will probably do him well too, as well. He's a rookie. He might not be used to playing this many games so much in a single year. But I have a conspiracy that I want to float to you and all the detailers that listen about what I think JJ was trying to do before he ultimately moved to this maxing. So we hated the switch defense because we were like, this is the stupidest thing that we could possibly do. And these guys, it just, we have to go into it again. Bad habits that develops.
right.
First. But JJ's post-game comments would always like give me pause because I always thought to myself, I was just like, why is he doing this? And then the post-game telling us basically that he's trying to challenge his guys to be better as defenders or be like to show some sort of initiative on their own end when it came to it. And then all of a sudden JJ switches and he pulls D'Lo out of the starting lineup. He plays Gabe. I think Gabe misses a game, or Gabe doesn't start the second half of the Blazers game, but then goes right back to starting the Atlanta game, which we lose in very close fashion. That was a tough loss too as well. And then eventually he pivots and pulls Gabe and then starts Max. Doesn't go back to D'Lo, doesn't do anything. So I have this conspiracy, Raj. I think, and this is not some crazy Frankenstein's monster genius thing that I think, but I think JJ was running that switching defense because he could have done this drop coverage at any time. He didn't have to wait till now to do. Nothing functionally changed with the Lakers for him to start using drop coverage more. Nothing, like really nothing changed. And I was trying to make sense of like why all of a sudden he started to incorporate drop coverage. Like, was there some internal intervention? Somebody in the front office one time said, "Yo, stop this! Like, start running more drop." I don't think that's the case. I think he has authority. Him and his coaching staff. That's what they want to do. My conspiracy is this. I think JJ was running that switching defense because he wanted to see who's actually willing to like fight for on the like he wanted to see the character of the player. It's a very far-fetched, a very probably not something where like it would make sense because we were losing games. But I think he was stubborn about the switching everything because he wanted to see who's actually willing to like battle for positions on the block, or who's willing to not allow that switch to happen, or who's willing to, hey, if you get mismatched on the wrong guy, are you going to battle that guy for rebounds? Are you going to do this and do that? And honestly, when I think about it in hindsight now, a part of me feels like the reason why D'Lo and Dalton got moved to the bench was because they were the two guys who were not doing a good job with helping box out guys, taking those mismatches and putting their body on the line to do certain things. Dalton was really bad at it when he was getting switches. Am I crazy to think that maybe there's a little bit of that involved in it, or is there some merit in my conspiracy?
I could see some merit in it. I mean, I think it was JJ is obviously a very numbers and film kind of guy, and I think it was clear to if you can just get anyone to watch then, and it even hit some national, media people were like, hey, this defense is a very stupid idea. It's not working. It's not impactful. I can kind of see that. And I think from the results of that, Cam Reddish just continues to play. Gabe Vincent continues to play. These are all guards that really fight, on the defensive end. I also think some of it, Vinay, is to protect, LeBron and, in terms of just make the defense a little bit more of a way where he can switch out or doesn't have to extend too much energy on the defensive end. And I think JJ has found that that's a lost kind of cause. The team was losing at a pace that wasn't sustainable. Their defense was last in the league and something had to change. I can kind of see that. I can see where he was like, hey, let me see who my fighters are. Let me see who my, rugged kind of players are. And I think it's kind of led to what the minutes have become. D'Lo's minutes have dropped precipitously since he's gone to the bench, and he's kind of continued to play these defensive minded players. Dalton's minutes have regressed, which a lot of that has to do with his shooting as well. And obviously Max getting the start. Max is probably your best rebounding guard, and he's your best kind of athletic guard, and he really mixes it up in there, which I think is something JJ likes. Just the tenacity of that as an athlete. I could see that. I could see where like he would want to test the team now. I think it went for way too long. I think we're switching for like 4 weeks in a stretch that really dropped us to 10th in the standings. But with how in flux the West is, we've kind of definitely recovered for that. Do you think JJ it took him as well a while to kind of understand like, hey, this is because I see this all the time with when AD gets propped up on these defensive lists. It's like, yeah, AD can switch out on anybody, which is true, which I think is a functional like truth. But Vinay, I don't think that's where he's elite at. Like I think AD's a good switching defender, but like what makes him elite is like a help defender. And I think it just maybe took JJ a while to kind of be like, okay, this is actually where he is at, his peak. There's something with that too. Can you see like I think like he's just learning his team, right? I mean we just had the whole Darvin Ham conversation, but like JJ's learning his team and still kind of getting used to, hey, this is what my stars can and cannot do.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think there probably is also a version of this where JJ was kind of learning what's the best way to deploy Anthony Davis. It is kind of weird that it took him this long to figure that out too at the same time, because there's a lot of pretty good data and tape behind him playing Anthony Davis in drop coverage. So I'm kind of curious to know. I'd love if somebody in the media would ask him, why is it? What did he see that made him want to run drop coverage more all of a sudden? Because it is kind of like sudden. Like it's not like he's like. I mean, I don't track the defensive run rates on drop coverage or whatever it is, but like I'd be curious to know why he started to sprinkle it in more all of a sudden when he could have done it so much longer. Like he could have done it for D'Lo. It probably would have helped when D'Lo and Dalton were in the lineup, or not D'Lo, Dalton, Austin and Dalton were together, because Dalton was having a really hard time navigating defensively. But yeah, it's got to be a mixture of things. But look, I'm happy that we're here now, and we're making some progress on the defensive end when it comes to it. Raju mentioned LeBron and helping out LeBron on the defensive end, and we don't have to keep covering like Bron's selective play here and there. He's an old guy. We all know why. Bron took an 9-day break, whatever it was, however long it was. It feels like forever now. And after he took that break, he comes back, looks great against Memphis, has a rough shooting game against Sacramento, but then has a phenomenal game on the back-to-back against them. Clearly, he needed the break, like very clearly. He hadn't gotten one since the Olympics. And I think it was really good for him. And I think a lot of people have looked at him and pointed at, him making contested layups and having a little bit of burst back, his jumper being back, that sort of thing. But Raj, for me, honestly, his engagement level defensively has been significantly higher since he's come back from his break. And like, I'm not going to I never sugarcoat it with him to the chagrin of many Bron fans, but like he was not playing very good defense. Like he would have his moments, but prior to his break, he wouldn't rotate sometimes. He wouldn't box out sometimes. It would be one of those things where the Lakers would switch and he'd get like a small guy on him, and then he just lose track of that guy. And one of those players on the opposing team would like just kind of run by him and get to the ball before he did. And it was a rough time for the Lakers, especially when a lot of times he was the second biggest dude on the floor defensively for us. But since the break, Bron has looked fantastic defensively. Like here and there, he's not going to contest every jump shot. He's not going to always do the low man thing, but he's grabbing rebounds in traffic now. He had a great rotation, which I think I got highlighted on the timeline. Recovery rotation to DeRozan or somebody in the left corner in that second Kings game. Stayed with him all the way through. Didn't foul, all that sort of stuff. So it's been really great to see Bron's batteries recharged on that end of the floor, because the Lakers, you need that out of a 6'8", 6'9" guy, especially when it's a max player. Talk to me about what you've seen like from him, like overall in these 3 games since taking his break.
Yeah. So I think like AD had the quote post game, but they kind of asked him, what do you attribute the defensive jump to? He said we're playing desperate, right? Which I'm not sure, Vinay, you want desperation in, mid-December either, but you can kind of understand it. You dropped it to the 10 seed. Your team was kind of wallowing on the brink of dropping out of the play-in even. And it's funny, something about DeRozan, I think, just gets LeBron going, right? Like DeRozan has lost, I think, whatever, how many playoff series to LeBron, and DeRozan now comes to the same conference as LeBron and gets the same kind of treatment. LeBron walks him down and puts him in the post and, knocks him all over the case. But no, I think this is how it's going to be. And LeBron turns 40, I think, in a week or whatever it is. And so, your expectations are kind of have to put there in terms of what his defensive effort will be. But I think this kind of comes full circle, Vinay. I think having a guy like Max Christie helps, like having a guy who defends and is an athletic kind of wing and power guy that can help you. And I think LeBron also understands, like, hey, this team can't be last in defense for us to be successful. He's kind of upped his effort on that end too. And then I think the Lakers got a lot more in transition. It felt like just a lot less half court stuff. Again, the Kings have no one to guard him. And so I don't know, something about, I think Keegan Murray must have said something because it looked like it got LeBron going on the second night of it.
Some guy in the crowd. I saw the ref even tell the dude in the crowd on the baseline. I think the clip was around somebody's talking trash to LeBron.
Yeah, and then Memphis always just has some extra words that that get him going. So I'll be interested to see how it's against Detroit, which a bad team, and see how the effort is against the Pistons. Is that one where it's just like let's just get through it and get the win, or is it the same kind of focus as a Sacramento team that has kicked your butt for the last whatever years that you haven't won against, and obviously a Memphis team that's good, that's respectable on the standings. Detroit's playing well. I think Cade is healthy, and they're Tim Hardaway Jr. is a Laker killer for life, and he'll be active in that game as well. But no, LeBron's played well, man, and I think the offense. I think you talked about it, how we've been kind of starting games with LeBron kind of freelancing a little bit, but it's felt like it's a little bit more. We're reverting a little bit back to AD kind of in control at the top of the key, and obviously Austin being back. We talk about Austin a little later too. I think he's played really well. Austin's return, headband Austin, which I guess,
Austin.
which is.
Did you see his reason for that? They're asking like, why are you wearing a headband now?
Was it the Dalton Knecht thing? Is like he was looking similar to Dalton, or what?
Yeah, I mean that would make sense to me because I couldn't tell them apart sometimes when I was watching games. I mean, but I think he said something like he's just trying to make people laugh, or he's trying to make people smile or something. And I was just like, what's going on? Like, what a bizarre thing. So I didn't think anything of it. Before we let the LeBron topic go, Raj, how do we stop LeBron from taking contested threes at the end of games? We're going to talk about the AD free throw thing, which is a very, very justified thing. But like I'm watching, like when I'm in Coach's Den and I'm watching. Shout out to our guys, Coaches Den guys, and the guys that are in the chat. Like even the Braun fans on the Coach's Den, when they're watching Braun late game, like they're all literally like, "Braun, don't take a contested three. Braun, don't take a contested three." And he does it, dude. And I don't know. Like, of course, he's your superstar. He gets to decide. JJ fully trusts him to make the correct read. And so I'm not saying that he shouldn't do it, blah, blah. But it's just like, dude, sometimes it's like, we don't need this shot. Like, so I'll give you an example. They tried to get Domantas Sabonis on him. I think the second time he got Sabonis on him, he drove on Sabonis. He ended up going out of bounds or whatever it was. But like, there's two things in that moment that I was kind of thinking about because Keegan Murray was on him. I was just like, is Domantas Sabonis the right guy to switch on to? Why not just take Keegan Murray straight up? Because it's not like he's that great of a defender. Or like, you can't score on him. That's one. And two, it's like, I feel like when Braun gets switches with big dudes. Now, to be fair, he got Zach Edey on him towards late game in the Memphis, and he drove by Zach Edey. Yeah. But Zach is like way bigger. Like he's like really slow compared to a guy like Sabonis. Sometimes I think that when he gets those switches and it's a big dude that he gets a switch on, it almost encourages him to take that contested three as opposed to him hunting out like a small guy to maybe bully his way to the rim.
Yeah.
It is it who's coming to set that screen for him that's the issue? Or is this just you've got to live with Bron taking this shot, and until JJ or somebody tells him he's just going to continue to do this.
Yeah, I remember. So it's forgotten now because that game went down the stretch. The Lakers I think went up by 10 with like 2 minutes left or 3 minutes left, and I thought it was done. I was like, this is a huge win. I didn't tweet it out because don't want to be blamed for a loss, but it felt good. And then the Lakers went into their prevent offense again, where it's just let's hold the ball, let's pound the rock. In that game, honestly, LeBron had 23 at the half, I believe, and he had but it was all inside the arc. His jumper still was not falling. But I think that's just a very low energy kind of input shot. It's kind of like, hey, let me get my switch and let me put you in. Let me do a couple dribbles and take a step back three. I don't think that's going anywhere. I do think the Lakers have found stuff down the stretch, which has been successful right there. They have an action where they go with, Reaves, LeBron, and AD, kind of work, a back screen for LeBron, or just go the Austin screen for LeBron, the ghost screen or the inverted screens. I like that a lot, and I was asking for that. But obviously LeBron sees Sabonis as a mismatch. And so, like, if that's a mismatch to him, then he's going to go out and hunt for that. And he put a lot of other guys in the corners. So I don't think anything's changing there. And that's kind of how late game offense goes, right? You watch any team and it's like, all right, unless it's Denver, right? Denver has a very specific, because Jokic kind of is a different universe there. But I think every team kind of gives the ball to their best player and was like, hey, go ahead and cook, right? Especially with a safe lead. So I don't think anything's going. Would you like LeBron to be a little bit more selective? Yeah, but are you telling him? That's
what I'm trying to figure out, brother. I don't know who's gonna tell Bron, because it's like, it's one thing. My barometer is always the Bron fans, and when the Bron fans are like, Bron, don't do this, like, don't take that shot. Like, even the hardcore Bron fans, it's just like, okay, I think now it's getting to a point where it's like, we've got to have some self-reflection. Like, if it's like the Pelicans game where he's hit like 4 threes and he's hot, cool. Go ahead, Bron. Like, take that. But it's like, when it's one of those games where like he's like 1 for 5 or 1 for 6. Oh, I love this comment from Gray Raj in the YouTube the YouTube comment section where he's saying Bronny needs to tell him at this point. That would be so great if like Bronny like calls a timeout. Imagine that, like, calls a timeout. Dad, don't take that 3. But yeah, who knows? Like, I do trust Bron to make the right decision. It's just that sometimes when you're slowing the game down to like a slow crawl, and it feels like every time we do it, it's like it almost indicates to the other team that they should play even faster than they normally do, because the Lakers won't get back on defense fast enough, or just go quickly because the Lakers are just trying to slow this down as much as possible. So I don't know. I don't know if JJ's ever going to tell him no. Like, you're gonna allow him to kind of be the superstar that he is. And for the most part, like, it's not as if Bron's consistently shot us out. It just seems like he goes for that home run play when sometimes he doesn't have to. And so, it is what it is. And we'll see what happens.
Yeah. I was going to say, like, I think, Ashan makes a good point. Austin is a closer. And this doesn't mean Austin's better than LeBron, or it doesn't mean, any of those things that, Bron fans would like to, mix into that. But it's just, I think that's kind of the ball handler that we've decided runs the actions. And that doesn't mean he's over a star player than AD either. It's just, I think you just mix in Austin's a great free throw shooter, and he knows how to embellish contact, and you can't foul him. Then you surround him with Bron and AD. I think that's a really tough cover. But LeBron had it going. But he had 30. I think he had 30 by the end of the third quarter or whatever it was.
Like 21 at the half. He was phenomenal.
He was great. Again, the jumper wasn't going, but everything else at the rim. I think you mentioned Keegan Murray. I think that's their best defender that they have.
Oh, wing defender. Okay.
I mean, that's their best wing defender, right? I mean, if you look at the Kings roster, and this is why my DeRozan tweet, which I went back to today to just re-enter onto the timeline. But I always disagreed with going to get DeRozan. That's a different conversation for a different day. But you just look at Fox, Monk, DeRozan, Sabonis. I mean, none of those guys can guard LeBron, so you put Keegan Murray on him, and he got to the rim at will. So again, he did it. The Kings aren't a great team, but even Memphis, right? I think he had a good game against Memphis, not scoring wise, but was able to kind of contribute on the offensive end. We'll see what he does against Detroit. But LeBron's fine. The whole goal of I think you agree, is getting him to April and May as healthy as possible, and some of that means not running back on defense. But
Yeah, yeah, that's part of it. Yeah, for
that,
sure. Which
so
they've done a better job of.
yeah.
I would say like these last 3 games, Memphis likes to run, Sacramento likes to run. Lakers did a really good job. There was a play I remember I highlighted in the playback, the coaches stand playback, where Malik Monk had pushed the ball in transition, and Max Christie was back on defense, and Malik it was pretty much a one-on-one in transition on one side of the court. That would have been a play I think earlier this season where Malik would have had 100% confidence just taking whoever was in front of him to the rim. And because I think Max had a really nice game, and he was having a nice game defensively. 2 games, that was the second game. Malik actually backed it out. He basically canceled that transition break, and it turned into a half court set. And I thought when that happened, I was just like, oh wow, this is like the first time I've seen this in a while, where a team's like, oh no, like we have to really value this possession because we're not scoring just whenever we want against this team, and so I can't risk taking a bad transition play. And Malik is ultimate green light guy. Like when he has it going. I think the first Sacramento game he went crazy. He had like 10 in a row or something like that, or 12 in a row in the third quarter or something. But yeah, it's very interesting. I think the combination of Max being inserted in, and even Braun being better defensively and more engaged on the defensive end, I think it certainly made. It's crazy to see how much of a difference it can make. And granted, we definitely got to see more sample size to get a good idea of what it is. But let's move to the next guy, Raj, Anthony Davis. He has been really, really great on the defensive end. We've gotten really great offensive games out of him. We also had a really big stinker the second Sacramento game with him. And I know a lot of Laker fans were upset with his offensive performance in that game. But he's been really great defensively, like after having a rough stretch of games after that Orlando game. Are you seeing something different from him? Is it drop coverage giving him some more energy in his legs because he's not having to chase guys around and switch all over the place?
I think some of it is that. I could tell you mentioned how defense kind of energizes him. I could tell what like absolutely kills his battery is when he switches out on the defensive end and nobody does their job on the rest of it. And you could see him just talking to players after, like, hey, you got to come help me on the boards. I do think a lot of that has to do with it. And I think his effort, has improved, and maybe the plantar fasciitis is, feeling better, maybe he's a little healthier as well. Him and LeBron, I think Vinay are going to be questionable for every game going forward now until the game starts. It's just going to be
practice. Yep.
Yeah. Which is just maddening for, how, in terms of how that works. I just don't
you're gonna have to wait till like the last 5 games of the season for them not to be on the injury report for anything.
Right. Yeah. They're just gonna be there every time. But no, he had 40 against Memphis and then 21 and 19 against the Kings 2 days ago. Right. Obviously, you wish he hit the free throws, and I don't know what's going on with that. He's too good a free throw shooter to continue to.
We can't go to him anymore, right? Like we until we can see him like. Raj, the 2 free throws he missed against Sacramento, they were 2 completely different misses. That was the crazy part about it. Like, usually you see them miss front rim, then maybe if they miss a second time, you overcompensate a little bit and it rims out. But the Sacramento miss was like front rim and then back rim. And I was like, holy crap, this is not even close. Like, he's shooting it 2 different ways. We have to do. JJ can't go to him. Like, we can't go to Braun because Braun, he can be. Sometimes he can't be. What do? We got to go.
Yeah. I think Braun went 1 for 2 too, but it doesn't matter but it doesn't matter because AD missed both. So and then obviously Austin got the rebound, and it's so crazy because I just like Austin's nailing both of these, and he just went in both free throws super calmly.
Did Austin miss 2 free throws earlier in the game? Like, he missed both free throws he took? Was that in one of the I could have sworn in one of the Sacramento games he did that. He drew a foul and he missed both free throws.
I think you might be right. I don't remember if that was this game or if that was the previous Sacramento game, but I think you're right. But crunch time, I have 0 doubts. So. But no, I don't think you can go away from your star. I just not being able to pass it into your stars for free throws is just that's an extremely rough place to be. So I think AD has to figure this out more than we can't go to him, because that would be
That's fair.
even worse. I think we talked about this before, Renee, like, in terms of his jump shooting, and that's kind of what gets the biggest headline, is AD shooting threes or is he not? But his ability to want to go to the free throw line, that kind of creates a lot of the offensive struggles. You don't want the ball because you don't want to go to the line. I think that's the reason Ben Simmons like won't make more than that, mid-level next year or whatever someone decides to pay him. No idea what you pay Ben Simmons on the open market, but yeah, I think he has to hit just free throws. LeBron, I'm like 1 for 2. I'm good, at the end of games.
It's a double. I would joke about it with my buddies. Like, it's like a double whammy, because it's like you get the Braun contested three that lets people back into the game, and then it turns into a free throw contest, and then AD can't hit free throws. So it's like, dude, you guys gotta figure something out, bro. Because this is like, it's like the sinking ship. And you're setting us up for like these one possession heartbreaks. But go ahead.
Yeah, and shout out to Rui getting the 2 tip backs.
Oh yeah, the tip out. Yeah,
the tip out that got them the win. But no, AD had 3 blocks still. Vinay, he had 6 blocks against Sacramento the game before. And I think, again, you put him in this help situation with guards that don't die on every screen. And Austin, is not a positive, plus defender, but he does fight, he does get over screens, and he's competitive on that end. And then Max Christie, I think, is really good at chasing over. And AD's been rebounding the hell of the ball. He's had 16 against Memphis, 19 against Sacramento before, and then 15 against Sacramento. So you'll take it. I think this team, you've mentioned this all the time, this team has enough offense to like carry. I know they're last in offense in the last 5 games, but they should have enough offense. You're paying Rui Hachimura $18 million to go be an offensive player. You're paying D'Angelo Russell $18 million to be an offensive player. I think there's enough offense there that should be able to protect AD and let him do what he wants to do, which is go and be a defensive wrecking machine, as you labeled this pod.
Yeah. It's very fascinating to see that when they have a very high defensive floor, how much they can really get away with. Like they're both the Sacramento games. Memphis not so much, because I think we had a pretty nice lead in that game. But both Sacramento games, like, because of our defense, I think JJ said this, like, our defense really has won all of these games for us. Like, both Sacramento games we had, outside of that Malik Monk flurry in the first Sacramento game, the Lakers have been really great. And like, even when they have bad stretch, like, I think we had a stretch of basketball in the first or second Sacramento game where we went like 4 or 5 minutes without scoring. Yeah. And we still kept that game very, very within reach. Like 10 games ago, Raj, we're getting blown out. Like, we're down by 20 if our defense isn't locked in like that. So it's been really great to see.
Before we flip off AD, just really quickly, because obviously Sabonis has been a thorn in the Lakers' side for a very long time. I don't think much has changed, Renee, in terms of what his weight is and AD's weight is. Sabonis didn't grow in height any this summer or lose height this summer. Here's the 2 games so far: 8 of 13 in game 1 for 18 points, 12 rebounds, 9 assists. Very good line, but Sabonis usually drops like 25 and 15 on our head. Yeah. And then last game, 19 points, 9 for 19 shooting. Should have got a technical foul 30 times, but did not. Was given the benefit of the doubt. What's the difference this year and last year? Sabonis, AD, one-on-one. Obviously, we beat them early in the year as well. I don't have his numbers from the early in the year, but I think he had a good game in LA. I can't remember, but at least just these 2, road and road. AD won the Sabonis matchup, I would say, in both categories. They couldn't really go to him in the post in a dominant way, and I thought AD contained Sabonis in transition in a way that he hasn't in the past. Anything there you saw that changed, I guess, in the matchup, or was it just AD kind of taking that matchup personally a little bit more?
Do you have the offensive rebound numbers in front of you by chance for Sabonis? Because the stats, like you said, like the stats look really good, but it almost feels like Sabonis wasn't hurting the Lakers or hurting AD the way that the way that we've seen it. And it almost feels like, so, like, obviously Sabonis will get his points, rebounds, all that sort of stuff. But one of Sabonis' probably best skills, which is something that NBA Twitter always makes fun of, is his screening. He gets his guys really, really open. Like, when he sets screens, he wipes out whoever he's guarding, and which is crazy because he's not like a Zach Edey sized player or a Jokic sized player. He's just really good at it. He's really tough, really rugged, gets really wide when he does it. And when he's wearing down your guards, because your guards are not good at navigating screens, the D-Lows, the Austins necessarily, when they get worn down, it feels like it turns into a 2-on-1 against AD. And aside from the physical punishment that AD has to taking on that matchup like that, the mental punishment of if I go this direction, who's covering for this? If I go this direction, who's covering for that? And I know a lot of times what's happened is like AD tries to stymie like the ball handler to help his teammates, but in the time he recovers to get to Sabonis is now full bore like ramming him like in the back, like to try and get offensive rebounds. And I want to say, Raj, that these last two games, I don't remember Sabonis really getting an upper hand on AD on the glass. Like just getting a bunch, forcing a lot of offensive rebounds. I feel like during the losses that we've had, that's always been a thing. Like they go to Sabonis and they just pound AD as much as they can in the post, or they run that pick and roll and he just like overwhelms AD because AD's trying to guard two different spots, two different positions. Sabonis gets a bunch of easy tip outs or a bunch of easy offensive rebounds to set up his teammates. Does that feel like that's what's been happening? I don't have any data in front of me or any film to back it up. I'm just thinking about trying to remember what I saw in the game.
Yeah. I think that makes a lot of sense. So Sabonis did have 19 rebounds in the previous one, but so he had 5 of them were on the offensive glass, which 5 seems like a lot, but it does feel like Sabonis, gets a ton there anyway. But you just look at the shooting there. He was 3 for set, or he was like 8 for 15 from shots in the paint. So like I don't think he got easy looks from there. And I think a lot of Sabonis's points, earlier, even last year, was the Lakers would switch a lot and Sabonis would get, whatever guard is on him. And we always talk about AD used to, whenever he would fall, that's when like the Kings would really take advantage, right? Sabonis would go full bore and it's like D'Angelo Russell back or, whoever it is trying to contain, always trying to contain to whoever he's guarding. So I think part of that is as well. And you're right. It felt like AD just was physical and Sabonis is a guy that really dishes out a lot of contact. And it felt like AD dished some back in these matchups. I think he had an early like dunk on Sabonis and he had like a shove on him, which, Sabonis embellished, which he's known to do. But I like the like contact and the physical play that I thought AD brought to those matchups. Because we had this conversation last year. The home game against Sacramento on a second night of a back-to-back, Lakers just did not. They wanted no part of that game.
Yeah.
And, and that was like the biggest. Sabonis dominates AD, right? And he had like a dunk on him in transition. But it felt like at least these games weren't second night of back-to-backs, but it just definitely felt like AD was more up for the fight. When the team kicks your butt that many times in a row, like I'm sure there's a mental fatigue. Sabonis was 15-0 against Anthony Davis or some stupid stat.
Yeah, so I think 11-0 or 10-0 or something like that.
Right. Yeah. And so now we beat them, 3 times, and now you own the tiebreaker against Sacramento. But I just thought that 1-on-1 matchup was interesting because Sabonis used to put Wilt numbers on our head.
Dude. It was like one of those things where like the numbers didn't do it justice. Like you could feel Sabonis completely dominate.
Yes.
Those games in those 80 matchups, and that's sort of been neutralized. Not sort of. It's like legitimately been neutralized. I don't know if it's because the Kings are doing something different with their personnel, new players in the roster and whatnot. But like AD's reaping the advantages of it. He doesn't look as worn down. I want to add one thing, Raj, because you mentioned him. You mentioned Rui. These last 2 games against Sacramento, Rui has the Lakers' attention to detail defensively has an extra layer to it because what's happened on a few possessions is Max and AD have been forced to switch their matchups, and Max gets switched onto Sabonis, and he immediately goes to front that play. And I want to give some credit to Rui because what's happened is they roll Sabonis on the same side that Rui's been on a couple of times. And as soon as Rui sees Max get switched on to Sabonis, they wait like half a beat to see if the ball is going to Sabonis or not. And when it does it, Rui and Max do a scramble where Rui switches off the corner guy that he's on, which is usually like DeRozan or something like that in those instances, or like like a stationary somebody that Max can guard basically, and he'll take Sabonis on, like he'll take the post matchup against Sabonis.
Yeah.
And I watched him do it in both games, maybe 2 or 3 times, and I'd like it's quite literally Rui telling Max, switch with me now, like you're right next to me, switch with me now, let me go take Sabonis. And I want to just kind of shout that out because that's one probably a detail that the coaching staff is helping them with, like a standard help rotations, quick scramble rotation. But it's also like we don't, a lot of people crap on Rui a lot because of his offensive numbers and stuff like that. And I'm not saying that he's a great player or he's untradeable or he's untouchable, or anything like that. But I think like those kind of small efforts should be. I think Rui got a lot of crap a couple of days ago for saying that like he's really tried, like he's really focusing in on his defensive effort. Um, but matching up against a guy like Sabonis, I'm not saying he's going to stop him, is kind of the kind of guy that Rui can defend, like a more heavy-footed, needs to use physicality because of the lack of skill, shooting or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And so I saw that happen a couple times, and I thought that was like a sort of a testament to the entire team being bought in, to their defensive philosophy, because he didn't leave Max on an island and have to make him have to defend against Sabonis himself. He went in, he took that matchup himself.
Yeah, no, Rui's been awesome. I thought at least on the defensive end, his offense is gonna fluctuate because again, I think he's being put in a role. You speak about this all the time, Vinay, but I think his offensive role is probably not conducive to what he wants to do. He wants the ball, but those mid range jump shots have kind of been taken out. Like I don't know how many mid ranges he's taking, but it doesn't feel like much. He's taking corner threes, which he's supposed to, but that's a high percentage shot in terms of the numbers, but it's a shot a lot of teams will live with as well. Rui, being a jump shooter, but the defense has been, I think he's been really focused there. He did a nice job, I thought, on Jaren. I thought he did what he could against Julius Randle a couple games ago, and I thought again against Sabonis, he's the one guy that can switch. LeBron as well, but I think they'd rather keep Rui on him, and kind of your job there, Vinay, is just to keep him off the super low block, right? And trying to push him at least 1 foot over where his comfortability is, and he's done that. He forced Sabonis into some tough hook shots. He boxed out. I don't know what his rebound numbers actually came to, but it felt like he was rebounding the ball pretty well. So no, Rui's been great. We'll see how that continues. He was 4 for 8, 9 points, 11 rebounds, Vinay, in their last game. So obviously those 3 offensive rebounds kind of saved the day. So not all rebounds are created equal, but zero
just like
turnovers.
Not all free throws are created equal.
No, they're not. No. But 9 points, 11 rebounds, 3 offensive rebounds, had a nice, I think he had a huge weak side block as well, during that, and it was a +10. So it was great. AD was a -2 in that game, which is I think because of how the late game kind of panned out. But +10 for Rui. He's been impactful. He's been positive, even when the offense isn't there.
Yeah. And before we get to Austin, I think we should probably just give a shout out to a lot of those role players because they have stepped up. I think D'Lo's had a very rough first go around against Sacramento, the first game, but played much better the second game, in terms of just knocking down shots. Cam, we talked about, had this amazingly timed block the second game on Malik. It was so good, dude. I had to replay it back just because I'm a big fan. I'm always a big fan of defense. I always will be. And the way he timed up Malik's layup was so good, when he got the block on him. But Cam has played really well. Gabe has played fantastic. He had a great shooting game the first game against Sacramento. Continues to be great defensively, gets his hands in spaces, takes charges. Raj, we're taking charges again. Gabe is putting his body out there, taking charges. That's usually a good sign. That means that people are really locked in on that front. In Memphis game also, he played very well. So it's great to see. I think the first Sacramento game, we got a nice stretch of basketball out of Christian Coloco too as well. But it's really great to see. It's very clear, Raj, that they need a backup center, like an NBA caliber backup center, and that'll help them a ton. So I we're not getting into trade conversations, but I really hope the Lakers address that, first and foremost. I don't know how they get to that point, but they really, really should try to address that because I think that'll make a huge, huge difference for their bench units. I don't want Braun and Rui to have to basically play pseudo center against good centers because I think that's going to hurt them. Teams are really going to try and pick on them when it comes to it. Any other role players that really stand out that I mentioned? Any plays or anything that you can think of?
Yeah, I mean, I gonna get to this later. But I think you mentioned Gabe a little bit. Gray was asking about Gabe's shot returning, which has been nice.
Mhm.
It has, I think there was some positive regression that just had to come from the player
Mhm.
that he was in Miami to where he is here. And you mentioned how much the I guess him just getting minutes and getting the ball in his hands has kind of rejuvenated his rhythm on the floor. But he looks more confident, Vinay. And I think you mentioned him taking a charge. I don't think that charge happens without the offensive kind of
Yeah.
confidence that's led to it. I'm not saying Gabe wasn't playing hard defensively because he was, but you could just see, there's some people who want to take the charge out of basketball, and I just refuse to take the charge out of basketball because it's such a momentous type play. But yeah, Gabe got the charge and he's defending well and he's trusted. And we always said, dude, if you're open, you got to shoot. Like you're too good
Yeah.
a shooter. Like just knock down the open ones. And
Yeah.
he hit some clutch shots as well. Banked in some big shots as well. I forgot what game that was,
Yeah.
but
The,
no
the
games
the
been
Atlanta game where he got the
yeah.
start and they really ran a ton of that pick and roll has like woken him up. Like I think something happened in that game where his confidence just as a player, because he didn't get benched at the end of that game.
Mm-hmm.
Like JJ said, no, you're finishing this game. I don't care. We're going to run the pick and roll, even though you've run none of it with Anthony Davis. We're going to all of a sudden run late game pick and roll with you and Anthony Davis, and he delivered on that end. Granted, we did lose the game, but I think that's helped. I think that's helped his confidence for sure.
He's also like a smart, high IQ guy. Like at least when he's running on all full cylinders, that dude's a smart basketball player that understands where passes should go. You could tell his reads are at least used to be there. If the athleticism can't reach there, so I still don't like the Gabe D'Lo Austin units. Vinny, I think that's too small. But I think JJ just likes the extra ball handling. But Gabe's been good. That's not going to stop anyone from throwing him in every single deal that exists because
Yeah.
10 million salary is not coming from nowhere.
Yeah.
And I'm sure the Lakers don't want another year of this either, as don't other teams. But
Yeah.
so I'm interested to see how that shakes out. But Gabe being good, that's a positive thing. That's
Yeah.
good for the
Absolutely. Yeah.
Lakers. Mhm.
Raj, let's talk about Austin Reaves.
Mm,
Austin headband. Austin
yes.
hurts himself, comes back. Looks like he gets back in the groove. Starts that Sacramento game off, wheeling and dealing. Has 4 assists in the first quarter,
Mhm.
and then proceeds to have only 1 assist the rest of the game because he decides to start letting it fly. Has a stretch, I think, in the second quarter where he doesn't look good, kind of pressing it a little bit too much, and then finally finds his groove in like the second half. Austin has returned back to being sort of the guy that we expect. And one of the things that I think I do want to say is um, how much Austin gets the ball, how much of a green light he has. Like he had a play in the second Sacramento game where it was kind of like a 3-on-2, him, Braun, and like he was sort of leading that transition break. I think Braun and AD were trailing it. He didn't give it to either of them and retreat dribbled it out to take a 3. Like
Mm.
that was one where I was like I get it, but like probably should go to your guys because the man advantage. But Austin's look good. He's starting to look comfortable again, running the pick and roll. It doesn't look like he's overly taxed physically because he's having to, because Max is there. Max is taking on that defensive assignment. Seems to have unlocked Austin a little bit. The Sacramento games, when the games were tight, Austin clutch floater, important big 3, open 3, that sort of thing. There are some times where Austin's pressing, but there are some the times where Austin is just, looks amazing and in complete control of the game. What have you seen from him, like since he's been back?
Yeah, so he finished 1 for 7 from 3 in that game. 3 ball still not exactly, I'm sure, where he wants it. It's at 35% on the season, which is okay. I think we expect more of like a 38, 39%.
Mm-hmm.
But the passing has been, I thought it's been really good. The playmaking has stepped up. He's had 18 assists in the last 3 games. So moving the ball well, and yeah, just right back to the another guy. Like I feel like his numbers don't really do justice on like how important his offensive contribution is to the team, of like what his ball handling does. And the only guy that can really get downhill like from our guards. And you look at the other guys, and it was funny because the Kings have all kinds of issues that don't need to get into, but their fans were kind of chanting for Keon Ellis tonight, which I don't understand why he's not playing. I like him a lot. But anyway, Keon Ellis was kind of, ball pressuring, is a really good ball pressuring defensive guard, right? I think he's one of the best, in the league at just that. But he was kind of giving D'Lo some issues. I don't remember if it's the first game or not. I think it was the first game. And then Austin's like, you're going to ball pressure me? I'm going right by you. And like, I'm getting to the free throw line. I think he had 8 or 9 free throws, I forget, in that first game. And that's just stuff that like really helps your margins. And you could tell he wasn't fully healthy maybe after whatever that fall was that he had. But he also got a break, right? But then he's played all 82 games last year.
Yeah.
So, and he played obviously the Olympic the year before. So no real huge break in between all those before the offseason. But just looks, you're right, back to that player that we hope. And like the 3-ball, the volume has been higher than it was last year. I believe he's taking like 7 or 8 threes a game. But just a guy you trust in every facet of the game. So Austin's been good. I have no worries or qualms of what he will be and what he'll turn into. And I mentioned it to start the show, 14-7 when those 3 play. And, it's not like you got great LeBron. It's not like you got a great Austin game every night. You didn't get a great LeBron and AD game every night. But I just think that shows kind of what you're working with when all 3 of those guys are healthy. It puts you at a floor that I think it makes some sense. We'll see.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think Austin's. I think that's a great place to start. And when we've talked about this Lakers team, like I think the scoring, you have those 3 guys. You sprinkle in some Rui here and there. You sprinkle in Dalton when he eventually is like kind of the normal Dalton that we'd see. I think that's a lot of scoring. I think you have enough guys that want to shoot the ball. It's really just fitting in everybody else. And I think like with Bron, with AD, with all the guys, Bron, AD, everybody, like you could see how fitting in good defensive players kind of helps reduce the attrition that they have over the course of the game. Like it helps reduce the workload that they have to deal with and get maybe a better version of the better version of AD at the end of games, better version of Bron at the end of the games, better version of Austin at the end of games too as well, because you have some guys who really dogs kind of getting after it defensively for them. Rod, do you want to hit some of these questions? We're right at the hour mark. Actually, I want to bring up this observation that I have here, or the observation that Chenny put in the chat, in the YouTube chat. So Chenny's Adventures brought a great observation, which only adds more, gives me more confidence in my conspiracy theory about why JJ was having these guys switch so much. And Chenny mentions that they were practicing having guards on bigs in practices too as well. I think there's a clip of JJ like boxing out or fronting Jackson Hayes that was the super popular. People use it to dunk on Jackson Hayes, but that was interesting because why would you practice that as much as you did unless you were planning on doing a lot of switching? So maybe there was some of this by design. JJ wanted to see if what they're working on in practice about how to deal with bigs was something that they could deploy, and obviously it wasn't successful. But maybe that is something. He wanted to see who'd actually win those drills. And then once he knew that he couldn't win with certain guys, he started swapping their minutes around and switching up the coverages.
I think the Lakers put out a clip of that, right? And I think that's what he's referring to. And then I think the guards won, if I have that correct, in terms of I think every point, like a stop is a point, or I forgot how they scored it, but I think the guards did win. And it was I think this was before the season, so there was a lot of positive camaraderie, in that clip. It was definitely by design. I mean, I think that's 100% the amount of switching they were doing. There was just no way that wasn't communicated as the plan. Now, again, I think we talked about all the detriments of switching. There's some positive to it, right? It's supposed to stop ball screen advantage. That's the main reason switching became super popular, right? Is when the league got very ball screen heavy, and that's how you stop all these guys screening for the other, and you can stop advantage. But no, I think it's 100% by design, and I'm glad I also don't think like your whole defense has to be dropped either. I think there's a middle ground, where you can switch when it makes sense. Like a Rui AD switch on Sabonis makes a lot of sense. That's a 2 physical guys that can be that can swap players. It's when you're switching like D'Lo and AD on the other team's max ball handler. But no, it's a great observation, and I think that kind of also lends more credence to what you were saying, which is like, JJ's, let me see who can fight with other bigs. And I think he learned not many guards can do that.
Very true.
Yeah, so we can get to some more of these questions here. So Savage says, you guys see they're trying to trade Kuz badly. He's stunning players' growth. I think Lakers may be able to get him for a swap and expiring contracts. So the Wizards, obviously, who's Kuz's incumbent team, I guess Savage said they're trying to trade him. Vinay, is that a player that you would go after? That someone you would be interested in the Lakers pursuing?
I would be interested if it's a very minimal cost. I need to. I'm right as we're speaking. As you guys hear me typing in the background. I am trying to figure out what Kuz's salary number is. 23 million. So let's say the Wizards come to us and say, just send us an expiring. We don't even care about the picks. Send us a guy. We need to get this guy off of this team. Send the third guy wherever you have to go. So Kuz, if you just need expirings to get to him, you're probably. I mean, assuming your guy JHS isn't really valued around it because what they did with his contract.
Mm-hmm.
JHS and D'Lo for Kuz, do you do that? I don't know if I'd be against. I don't know if I'd be against that.
I don't see why Washington does that now. I mean,
For sure,
I think
fair.
Right. I think you'd be trading Kuz at his lowest possible value. Right? I mean, I'm guessing, and that contract isn't terrible. You just mentioned $23 million. It's not a terrible contract for where the cap is. I mean, hell, Caruso just got $20 million a year, and I love Alex Caruso, and I think that's a fair deal. It's just talking about where the contracts are going. Yeah, I'd be interested. It's the same. Like, if you're gonna get Kuz, I'd rather just go get the guy in New Orleans. Like, if you're gonna go get another,
I'm with you.
Right? If you're gonna get a former Laker that fills some needs, I'd go get the athletically more athletically gifted player. But yeah, I just don't think there's a Kuz trade that works. I wouldn't.
Yeah.
That we would be open. I guess to doing.
Yeah, I think the Kuz scenario is one of those scenarios because he's got 2 years left. Next year he gets paid 21 million. He has a declining salary contract, and then the following year he has 19 million. So I think this is one of those things where, like, if we were in the 11th hour, and the Wizards like, please just get him off of our roster because we don't want his salary on the roster, I think I would consider it. I wouldn't mind playing him at the 4 and then moving Rui to the bench if Rui's still on this roster. At the trade deadline, I think now you have a little bit more balance. I think you get Gabe, Dalton, Rui. I think that's a little bit more balanced out size and shooting, defense, and an isolation scoring guy that JJ can work with. Maybe you can move another guy around to get that backup center that you want. Now, all of a sudden we go from a team not having wings to having wings, having another wing that would, and Kuz wasn't bad. Kuz has familiarity, knows how to play next to AD and LeBron. He's gotten paid, so he doesn't need to shoot the ball as much as he'd like to. It's not a bad trade. It's probably not the first trade I do for sure.
Just imagine, Vinay, that you're Rui Hachimura. And you're like,
yeah, go. I know what
you got out of Washington. They brought in Kyle Kuzma, who's going to be a scoring wing ahead of me. I got to a place where I'm starting. I'm doing my job. I'm doing all the coaches are asking me. I'm not even touching the ball for like 3/4 of the game. And Shams Charania reports the Lakers go grab Kyle Kuzma. I just can't imagine that would be again. I'm not saying Rui has autonomy in terms of what the Lakers do. It's just I think that's an interesting subplot. I meant to star this, but I guess I showed it on the screen. So just go. I guess we'll just go with it. Yeah, let's go. Gray Raj, I'm glad Max is playing well, but he's the 5th different guy that's starting next to Austin. I think we need a really reliable, bona fide starter who can guard there, a Bruce Brown type. I can see where that is, Vinay, but I like Max starting, and like I wouldn't be mad at going to get Bruce Brown either. But where you at? I guess can Max be your starter full time with how like this roster and the Lakers be a contender? Is this a contending starting lineup? I guess with Max.
That is a great question. I think if this defense holds up for another 20 games, okay, I'm just throwing a large number out there.
Sure.
If it holds up for another 20 games, I think you could. And Max is not really bad offensively. He's giving you 5 5 to 6 points, but playing really great defense, and we're staying a top 10 defense as a result of this. I think because I'm a big proponent that you have to have a top 10 defense to have any shot at being a contending team. And I think you and I have said it before. I would rather have a very high defensive floor and just trust AD and LeBron to figure it out in the playoffs. And actually, not even just AD and LeBron. Like, I think JJ is a good enough coach where if he would get into, he's a enough oriented coach where if he got into a playoff series against one specific team and he knew he could trust his defensive floor of his team, that he'd be able to find ways to be effective offensively against whoever we played against. So I think it can be, but I have to see it over a larger sample size. I think doing it against a team led by De'Aaron Fox and John Morant is a great start. Like, we're gonna play Steph in a couple of games. Like, I want to see him do it against Steph too as well. So it's a big deal.
Yeah, that's where I'm at as well. And look, this starting lineup's going to lose eventually. They're 3-0 right now. Like, there's a loss that's coming. I think a level of continuity is necessary. I think you have to kind of ride with some of the downs, right, a little bit, as you do with the ups of what the lineup can give. And I understand wanting to just go and trade right away and improve that spot, but they're playing well. The defense looks like something that's more consistent that you can kind of hang your head on. And we'll see if the offense can kind of pick up. I don't think the offense has dipped so far because of Max's offensive play. I think it's been a kind of team-wide thing. But I like the starters. We'll see how they kind of improve. And that doesn't mean the Lakers shouldn't do more trades. We'll go through a few more here. I'm not going to – controversial man has asked a lot of trade requests, so I'll kind of go through these. I'll give a larger question, Vanessa. He's mentioned DeJounte Murray. He's mentioned Larry Nance Jr., and KCP. Out of all of those, what's your, I guess, favorite in those three? Yeah,
Larry Nance, KCP, DeJounte. So I think DeJounte Murray is probably not going to get traded.
Okay.
I think the Pelicans are probably going to hold on to him because they gave up a lot for him. And the fact that Dyson Daniels has been so good, and Dyson Daniels came out and said there's something wrong with New Orleans because everybody gets hurt there. They're probably going to be tentative about trading guys away. And he's probably part of whatever their post-Zion future is going to look like. Nance is an interesting one because he's sort of a low-risk player. Again, another guy who will just play his role, can play the 4 or the 5, can switch on to many, many different players, will do the grunt work, rebound, defend, that sort of things. I think he's a good tool player. If you use him in like that Jackson Hayes role, that you can get a little bit more, that JJ can get more out of him than he can actually have. He can't shoot, but he's a great hustle guy. I'm not against it. Just depends on what the cost is. I wouldn't want to trade anything of significant value to get him. But I think, he if you're using him like the Vando role, I think he can do it. I think he can do the Vando role. Like, he probably is not there chasing guys around on the perimeter, around screens and stuff like that, but crashing the glass in the corners, that kind of stuff, helping out AD on the glass, challenge shots at the rim. I think he can do that.
I'd rather go after Larry Nance than Jonas Valanciunas. Like, I don't even know how available Larry Nance is. I haven't heard his name floated around. He's on Atlanta. Is that correct?
Yeah, he's with Atlanta right now. Yeah.
Oh, okay, who's playing well? So I'm not sure. I'm not sure he's in the rotation. I don't remember if he even played. When we played them. But I would rather get him than Jonas Valanciunas. I think he can play next to AD, and I like the athletic kind of jump that he gives the team. Another baby Laker. Yeah,
speed too. He gets up and down the floor.
Yeah, not baby because he came in at like 23, so I wouldn't say he's a baby Laker, but he's a former, young Laker. That was on the team. I would rather go get him. All right, man. We'll keep flying through some of these. Ernest Booker asked if the Lakers can get Cam Johnson DFS, does that make them a contender?
Yeah, I think it does. If depending on what the outgoing is, if the outgoing for Cam and DFS is, let's say, they're about 33 million, I think, combined. So if the outgoing is like D'Lo and like Gabe and JHS and a bunch of picks, I think that, and you're not giving up Rui or Austin or Dalton, I think that certainly helps. I think DFS can fit right into that KCP role for the Lakers, and I think Cam. I mean, they would probably both start. I would think.
Yep.
I keep thinking when I squint at, and I look at Cam Johnson, I think of him as Danny Green. Like I think of him as a young Danny Green type player. He has much more offensive skill than Danny Green does. Like Danny Green was like just a true 3-and-D guy. Danny Green is probably a better defender than Cam Johnson was, but I think of him in that mold, like a guy who's just running his lanes, knocking down threes, scoring on baskets, giving you energy, stuff like that. That sort of thing. So I think that certainly pushes the Lakers talent wise in the direction of being a contender. Then it's just a matter of JJ figuring it all out.
Yeah, right. Yeah, no, I'm with you there. And I think it does. I think it also depends on what you give up, I guess, right? The amount of talent that also goes out. The LFR pod talked about the difficulties of, I guess, acquiring Cam, because I guess his the incentives in his contract kind of make it tough. But just from a basketball wise, I could definitely kind of see that in terms of what the team would be and the talent, I guess, upgrade. I guess we can close this one, Vinay, because I know it's going kind of late, but I don't want to use this to, like, I guess, attack Rob. I want to, like, actually,
Raj, before we ask this question, Cam Johnson had a segment on the Old Man in 3, a clip that was floating around where he talked about the human element of playing on a rebuilding team. And he goes, people, if you haven't seen the clip or you haven't seen the episode, I highly encourage you to watch it, because he articulates like how it can affect players at different levels of their careers, stars, guys who are just got their contracts, and the guys who are trying to make it in the league. I thought it was fantastic, and I just want to mention that because, like, you and I have talked about this extensively. Like, I would like to say that we're one of the few pods that talks about like respecting the human element of basketball, because these are human beings that play this sport. And like, one of the things I think that we've advocated for many, many times is, like, consider the fact that so many of these players, like when we talk about Rob, because we're gonna talk about this Rob question right here, like that the inaction that the Lakers take when they put their players' names on the roster in rumors constantly, the human toll it takes on those players, and that fans, I'm not like, you fan how you want, but how they feel. Like, I get it, they get millions of dollars to play a sport that we wish we could get paid a couple, like tens of thousands of dollars to play. But still, there's still a human aspect of basketball of, like, I'm spending October through January hearing my name in trade rumors, and you guys want me to give it my all, risk my body, do all of this, and I might not even be here in February. Why would I do that? And there is a human element to that, and there is a very that's something that sometimes we don't consider. I just want to mention that because I thought Cam articulated that so well.
It was really good. Him and Subert, I think we're having the conversation on the young man of the 3 now. So
young man of 3, yeah.
Yes. Which I'm not sure if that's Cam Johnson's pod, or I have no idea how it worked, but would be an interesting kind of revolution for him to come here and kind of work with JJ even closely. No, it was a great segment. I encourage everyone. But no, so Controversial Man asked, again, there's a lot of places you can go and just attack Rob, but I'm just interested, I guess, in your eyes, what do you think Rob's basketball philosophy is? Not even compared to other GMs, Renee. I just, looking at the trades that are available and that can be created, and obviously the popular ones are the ones we went through already. I see the other questions about Nick Richards and those guys, but I'll keep that to the side for now. But we have Brandon Ingram, you have Zach LaVine, you have the Cam Johnson DFS. Not what you think should be, but what do you think Rob's philosophy is basketball wise going into, this, watching the Lakers, who they are now, and what he can go and trade for him?
I think Rob's philosophy basketball wise is you want to put, and I think Rob's philosophy is that you want to put the best product, the best roster around your star 2 players. I think that is genuinely his philosophy. The problem I have with his philosophy is, or I think the issue with his philosophy is how he thinks that's supposed to happen. And I think Rob's philosophy historically has been very skewed towards combo guards. He has this belief. I think Rob has this. In the big chat, I always say he has a fetish because that's the only way I can describe what it is. But he really likes combo guards. He has this thing for combo guards: the Kendrick Nunns, the Malik Monks, the Lonnie Walkers, the Gabe Vincent's, the Austin Reaves, the D'Angelo Russells. He has this thing with combo guards where I don't know if it's tunnel vision. Those are the kinds of players that he really likes to do. Like GMs have this thing. Like if like Mitch Kupchak could find big men, like he's doing it now. Like even in Charlotte, like they went through Kai Jones, Nick Richards, Mark Williams, and they had another center. I can't remember who it was even before all those guys. But like they seem to find centers. Go look at Orlando. Wendell Carter Jr., Goga Batazde, Jonathan Isaac was playing center for them. Like they find ways to get centers. So I think Rob as a GM, it might be because that like it's kind of a position he played in college himself, like not combo guard, but like a little bit more guard oriented player. I think his philosophy is that guards carry you to, the promised land. He rep James Harden, he rep Kobe, obviously, and so like I think that's his philosophy. That like great guards, impactful guards lead to winning basketball. And I think that's his philosophy, but he has so much tunnel vision on it that he ignores the other parts. And I think the NBA is changing. I don't think guards are like the wave as much. Now you're seeing wings be the wave, but I think you see a guy like Paolo play the 5. Like bigs are starting to come back too. Like they're starting to become more important too. Jokic, obviously. But yeah.
For sure. Yeah, I can say, and I think a lot of it also, Vinay, is rooted in what supports LeBron and AD, of course, but I think that's kind of where this started, at least, right? I think that's where Dennis Schroeder came from, right? Dennis Schroeder was the first.
Schroeder, yeah, I totally forgot that guy.
He was the first ilk of this, right? It was like, hey, we're going to trade Danny Green, excellent 3-and-D player. Obviously, missed that one shot in the finals, but other than that, was excellent. Lost some of his closing minutes to Caruso, but anyway, starting guard who again started for Philadelphia, I believe, right away, right after that on a good Philadelphia team. So I think that's where it started from. Like this week to protect LeBron is give him a ball handler and give him someone that can kind of take away some of those possessions from him. But yeah, I don't know exactly what his philosophy is, and I think I would just boil it down to he's going to try to find the best trade without giving up both first rounders, and whatever deal allows that. I think that's the move that's going to be created. I'm not saying he doesn't have a path towards that, but that's what I would expect. And I do think he believes that Austin, LeBron, and AD are your core, and I think everyone else is kind of, other than Dalton, obviously, but I think everyone else is kind of movable, tradable, and I think he's right in that. Like I think that's the correct stance there. We'll see if there's any other deals that made, but yeah, I think that was an interesting way to look at it. I think like what his philosophy is.
I was thinking about it as you were talking. Jalen Hood-Schifino, Max Christie.
Yeah.
Like I'm like now I'm starting to think like if you squint and you think of like they're not true combo guards, but in the 90s they would have been combo guards. Like Max Christie would have been a combo guard. Like, and then you mentioned the the Danny Green trade for a combo guard in Dennis Schroeder. Doesn't re-sign Caruso, but re-signs Taylor Horton-Tucker, who was functionally a combo guard. Russell
trades KCP for Russ. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Like so, it's just again, I'm not here to bash Rob, but it's like if you think hard enough, you can see the pattern of Pat Beverly combo guards. See, they're just like popping in my head now. You can see the pattern that comes out of it, and so I think that's what it is. That's the way I would answer that question. I think his philosophy is guards matter, and I think for him specifically, I think combo guards really, really matter. Like he values them very highly, but he doesn't do a very good job finding the right ones or re-signing the right ones at times.
Yeah, most definitely. Yeah, but it's been a good Laker week, and I'm someone who does not like trade talk in mid-December, even though this is kind of where the league has gone, and we didn't get into ratings and all that stuff, which is dominating.
Yeah, I wish we had a chance to. Yeah,
but yeah, good week of Laker basketball.
Yeah, we got a good week of Lakers basketball. We've got more games on the docket. We're recording this on Sunday night, so Monday Lakers got to play Detroit, who like thoroughly thrashed us when we played them. So I hope the Lakers come very locked in to avenge that loss and continue this 3-game win streak and make it a 4-game win streak. Folks, Raj and I are going to be out of town separately, not together. I'm going to London with the family. So I'm going to be out of town from like Christmas to basically New Year's Day. So there's going to be a little bit of a break with the pod. Not too long of a break, but I'm sure there's going to be Lakers basketball happening in between. I know Roger going out of town a little bit here and there too as well for the holiday. So we probably won't get a chance to record because I certainly won't be able to record overseas. Probably won't be able to record it until I get back, which will maybe make our most recent recording or next recording like the first weekend of the new year in 2025.
Mm-hmm.
So with that being the case, before we signed off, I wanted to wish everybody a Merry Christmas and a Happy Holidays. Obviously, we'll be in the chats and we'll be on Twitter and that sort of stuff, so we're not going to be gone, but you just won't hear from us on the pod unless Raj, you decide to something happens and you've got to do a solo pod, which I know you're fully capable of doing. But we won't get the chance to chat with each other on Lakers basketball until the new year. So I hope everybody has a Merry Christmas for those that celebrate it. And you guys have a really safe, warm, happy, fun, happy holidays with your families and friends, and a happy New Year's, because I think that's going to be it's just a good time. It's just a good time to enjoy time with family, regardless of Lakers basketball, whatever your sports teams or favorite sports teams are doing. So we hope you guys all have a happy holidays. Raj, you want to leave a message for the folks?
Yeah, just Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, and let's go spend some time with family, and enjoy it, and enjoy this season, and enjoy the Christmas Day game at home with your family or wherever you watch it. And yeah, just we're appreciative of all the support this year, and yeah, we'll talk to you guys in like a little over a week. So whenever the new year, we shine in the new year of 2025.
Yeah, and I don't think, Raj, you could have said it any better. 2024 has been a really great year for Lakers Detailed. The Discord, people jumping in on the YouTube, jumping in on the X streams, the comments that we get. I think not to pat ourselves on the back too much, but like I definitely want to shout out the detailers, because it is very easy to get a really crappy timeline, Lakers timeline, and I feel like the detailers that consistently say, and even the guys that we're friends with, the coaches and guys, there's been like a change in the Lakers Twitter sphere of like, you're still gonna get the bots and the crazy engagement farmers and stuff like that, but there's been like a change in how we like look at this stuff, like the way we talk about Lakers basketball. We're not like, I'm finally not seeing a single player every single time we lose be the only guy that's discussed, that for losses and stuff like that. I think that's a really great thing, and I think this fan base is continually getting better, continually getting smarter, and continually like really, really thinking about basketball the way that we should be thinking about basketball, in the way that we're invested in. So, folks, I'll get this uploaded to Apple and Spotify, or you can rewatch this back on the Lakers Detailed YouTube. But whether you're listening to this now or you end up listening to this later, we hope you have a wonderful holiday season and a wonderful New Year's. And if nothing else, we'll see you in the next one next year. Take it easy.
Peace.